Hello everyone, I'm Michelle R. Young, the author of the Gearhart trilogy. Today I will be sharing how I learned to cope with and overcome my two learning disabilities through my writing. In the 4th grade, I was diagnosed with two learning disabilities. One is dysgraphia and the other is ADHD. For those of you who don't know, dysgraphia is a learning disability that affects your motor skills in writing. Simply put, it is difficult to write and takes me about 50% more time than the average person to get the words in my head onto the paper. After being diagnosed, my family and I tried multiple avenues to help me. I spent 2 years in a private school for people with learning disabilities before I went back to public school. Luckily, I had accommodations like the teacher's notes for class lessons and extra time on essays and tests. I was lucky enough to have wonderful parents who helped me with my schoolwork. One of the greatest ways they helped was when I would dictate my essays. They would write it down so I could type it out afterwards. This helped by giving me an outlet away from the pen and paper to release the words in my head. This actually helps me process my sentences and grammar better. One thing I learned in high school was I was practically grammar blind, so my parents taught me editing and how to listen for mistakes when you speak a sentence. This helped me immensely. It wasn't until I graduated from high school and was on an ocean conservation trip in the Philippines when I began thinking about this dream that was constantly on my mind for a year. I decided I had to write it down so I wouldn't forget all the little details that were already beginning to fade. After 10 pages, my time in the Philippines was over and it was time to go to a new college. I continued writing the story for a short time before I began to focus on school again. It wasn't until my senior year that I picked the story back up and completely finished the first draft of the book. I never realized I could actually enjoy writing until I was writing for myself and making my own world. All the stories I've made up about other worlds and people over the years were stuck in my head. Now I have nearly 30 different stories in the making, including my current trilogy. One thing I learned that really helps me focus better is to write while listening to music, mainly movie scores and classical music. Another way to help me focus is to limit phone access and use a finger fidget to give my hands something to do. ADHD people like myself are generally very sensory oriented, and if they have the right balance of sensory output and input in the learning or working environment, then they can become very efficient. Publishing my first book, Gearhart, 1 year after my first draft was an incredible milestone for me. I sometimes look back at the high school me who laughed at the possibility of becoming a writer one day. Now I laugh at my old self for doubting. If you are struggling with a disability or don't have any, but you wish to pursue a passion that may scare you, my advice to you is to not limit yourself. If you do, there are so many adventures in life that you can miss out on. Well, that is a wrap for now. I'll be sharing more of my story in the future, as well as tips for writing your own story and publishing advice. Be sure to give this video a like, a comment, a share, and don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to check out my book by clicking on this link here. See you next time!